Hello, this is a recording for Stardew Valley Simple Sound Manager, a mod, and this is going to teach you how to use it with the new 2.0 update. So in order to use this mod, this tutorial assumes that you already have SMAPI installed, which is the mod loader for Stardew Valley. Then next what you have to do is you'll want to download and install the Simple Sound Manager mod into your mods folder, so like Steam, Apps, Common, Stardew Valley, mods, and just put it right here into the folder. So this is kind of what it would look like once you have everything downloaded. But you don't have to worry about that. In order to use Simple Sound Manager, you have to have two things. You need to make a content pack that has the actual audio files so that Simple Sound Manager can look and load those audio files. And then you need to make a mod that actually controls when those audio files played. So for an example, we'll just make a simple content pack right now. So I'll just copy this right here. Simple Sound Medley is just an example I made earlier, which is a content pack for Simple Sound Manager. I'm going to just copy paste, and let's rename this. Don't worry, I'll go through the actual contents of this folder in a second. We'll say Simple Sound Manager Content Pack. It's a little wordy. It can be called whatever you want it to. This folder doesn't matter as much as the actual contents. So let's open it up real fast. And so I'm just going to delete this out real fast. I was just testing it real fast. So now that we have our empty content pack, or our new content pack folder, it needs two things. It needs this manifest.json and this music folder. And so don't worry, I'll post a template that you guys can all use later in order to make content packs a lot easier to create. So let's just open up manifest.json real fast. And you'll notice it has some fields that we can fill out. Sorry. So we have like a name. So what would the content pack name be called? Let's call this Simple Sound Manager Content Pack Example. Whoops. My name is I am Omegasys. The version will be 1.0. This doesn't matter as much. The description for this will be an example for how to make content packs for Simple Sound Manager. Nifty. Our unique ID will be called Omegasys. So this unique ID needs to be unique for the content pack that you're creating, so that way SMAPI can properly load it in. So yours will want to be something different than the one I'm making. Typically the convention is your modding name, so mine's Omegasys, and then followed by a dot and the name of the content pack that you're creating. So I guess in this case it would be Simple Sound Manager Content Pack Example, which is way too wordy. Normally you would name it something like I don't know, like Pokemon sounds, or like My Cool Content Pack. Wow, that was lame. Or yeah, just anything you want. Like this name can be anything you want, and this unique ID should typically follow this naming convention. Notice how there are also no spaces. That's completely stylistic. That's what I do, but in this case it looks pretty clunky. So let's just do SSM example. SSM for Simple Sound Manager example. The minimum API version is the minimum version that for SMAPI that is required. This shouldn't be too much of a problem right now, but when a new update comes for SMAPI 3.0, then you'll want to update this. Update keys, we won't worry about this right now because this example won't be uploaded to Nexus mods or any other websites, but basically it's just used for sending a notification for the SMAPI console to let mod users know when you updated your mod. And this is a content pack for, and the unique ID. Don't change this. This is the ID of the required mod. this is for my mod Simple Sound Manager, so we don't need to change that at all. So let's just save this real fast, close this real fast, and now we have a music folder. And so this is where we put all our sounds related to Simple Sound Manager that we want to use for this mod. So I already selected a song. I've bought a lot of music off of Humble Bundle before, and so I like this generic spell and 6 song. So I'm just going to copy and paste it here. And let's rename this as something else, so that way it's a little easier, more understandable. We'll call this like a warp sound. Perfect. So now this is warpsound.mp3. Simple Sound Manager currently supports .ogg, .wav, so wave sounds and .mp3 sounds. So those 3 file formats are supported currently. So now we have our warp sound, and that's the most simple content pack we can make right now. So you know, if we were to just load up SM API, let me delete these things real fast. Yeah, let me delete or move these somewhere else. Sorry about this part. I just want to be able to work on this stuff later. Unused mods. That's not actually part of the tutorial. That's just me realizing I should have prepped that earlier. So let's go back to our mods. So now all we have is console commands, which comes with SM API. We have Simple Sound Manager. I'll get rid of my other example. So now we have console commands, Simple Sound Manager, and the Simple Sound Manager content pack. This folder name should be the name of your actual mod. So I guess we'll rename this to SSM Content and Pack Example, just for naming sake's convention for the moment. So now if you were just to try to load up SM API, just gotta plug in my laptop real fast. Just gotta wait for it to boot up. Takes a little bit of a moment. Trying to record and load Stardew Valley definitely makes my computer think a little harder. There we go. So if we look, so let's just minimize this. If we look at the console, which normally you won't have to care about, you'll notice that we've loaded 2 mods, the console commands and the Simple Sound Manager. And it's loaded 1 content pack, our Simple Sound Manager content pack example 1.0 by Amicus. It's for Simple Sound Manager, and it's an example on how to make content packs for Simple Sound Manager. Nifty! Don't worry about anything else that comes down below for Simple Sound Manager. It's just a lot of what it does in the background, like taking files and making sure that Stardew Valley can just load them in and play them. So you know, we've noticed that we added in a new music pack, Simple Sound Manager content pack example, etc., etc., and it has a song list that we can reference. Which is important when loading in music, because I guess technically you could use music from other mod authors' content packs, but always ask permission. And so for this content pack, we just have the 1 song, or the 1 sound called Warp Sound. I guess it's not really a song, but you know, there's no way to really use it right now. It just kind of sits there. There's nothing that allows us to really say when that sound plays. So let me just close it out. That was probably noisy. So what we have to do now is we have to actually make a SM API code mod that tells us when we want to play our sound. So if you're not super familiar with programming, this part might be a little tricky, and I apologize. So just try to bear with me a little bit on it. So first, let's go to Visual Studios, and so let's make a new folder, or a new project. And I'll walk you through this process if you've never really made a mod before. Yeah, let's browse a little bit. I want to make this in a different location. So you choose a location in which you want to like have his like folder created or his project created. So I think I'll make it on my desktop. I recommended putting it somewhere different, but just for the sake of this video, I'm going to put this on my desktop. And I'm going to call this is the name of our repository that we're making, or basically the mod. Make sure you select class library.net framework to make this Stardew Valley mod. We're going to call it Simple Sound Manager Example. Cool. Our framework is .NET Framework. I think that should be fine. And so, Simple Sound Manager Example. Load that. Great. Let's click OK. And so just wait for Visual Studio to load for a moment. Yeah, it takes a while. Visual Studios likes to take its sweet time. I guess I'll probably do some video editing on this later to fix this part. Oh. It's taking more time than I'm used to. Oh, it's probably because I'm recording. My CPU and GPU are probably split on the tasks right now. At least Visual Studios is responding now. Perfect. Now that we have this up and running, this is our mod. This is like our file that we'll be using. So if you've never done programming before, I'm really sorry. This tutorial isn't to really teach a lot of the programming side and how C# works, but you can try to follow along. If you follow what I do, this should just help you get all set up. But I do recommend watching videos for how programming works in general. I think it's super useful. And it can be a little intimidating at first, but I'll try to go pretty slow. So let's go Tools, and we need to do something called the NuGet Package Manager. And we need to go to Package Manager Console, and we just need to open that up. Oh, let me get this window showing a little bit. Don't be too intimidated by this. All we need to do with this part right here is we need to go to, you can just open up Google Chrome. Whoops. I had a lot of open tabs earlier from when I was reading. Now let's go to SMAPI, NuGet package, and I believe this should give us what we want. Yeah, so we need to click this first one right here, the Paphos Stardew Mod Build Config 2.2.0 for the NuGet gallery. And so all you need to care about right here, don't worry about this too much, it's just copy paste this thing right here. So just Control C, don't worry about typing it, just paste it in, click enter, and it should do its thing. Successfully installed the Paphos Stardew Mod Build Config 2.2.0 to Simple Sound Manager Example. Perfect. So now, just to verify, let's go back to the Tools tab up here for Visual Studios. NuGet Package Manager. Let's manage NuGet packages for solution, just to really take care. I also apologize if I'm pronouncing NuGet wrong. Yeah. So yeah, as we can see here, it looks like it is properly downloaded. The latest stable version for me currently at the time of recording this is 2.2.0. So we are good to go. So let's just close this little tab right here. Also, if your Visual Studio version looks a little different, I'm using 2017 Visual Studios right now. But you might be using a slightly different version, or maybe your theme looks slightly different, or your windows are laid out. If so, I apologize. But I believe this was like how I set up my Visual Studios to work. But anyway, so right now, let's just get into the coding part. So we got, got using namespaces. We don't really need any of this right now. Or using directives. We got our namespace, simple sound manager example. Don't need to worry about that. Right now we have a public class, class 1. Let's rename that. I typically rename my mods to be around what I'm making. And sometimes if I can't think of anything, I just do something generic like mod core. Which is just like the core file or like the brains of the mod that I'm making. But this time I think I'll do simple sound. You know what? I'll make this simple sound warp example. I think is what I'm gonna call this mod. Let's rename the file appropriately so that way we know what we're looking at. We'll call it simple sound warp example. There we go. So now we have this namespace, simple sound manager example, and we have our class, simple sound warp example. So I'm going to inherit from Stardew Valley, Stardew Modding API dot mod. So we can also shorten this by saying, don't worry about this for a moment, using Stardew Modding API, semicolon. Oops. And so now we can just shorten this to just mod. And now let's hover over this real fast, and it says simple sound warp example does not implement inherited abstract member mod.entry, and then is passing in some stuff. Don't worry about that. Let's just click on our little light bulb, and we can click implement abstract class. And what this does is it just creates an entry method. So when SMAPI loads this mod, it knows exactly what to do when it finds and loads in this mod. So now we have our public override void entry function, and it takes an imod helper. And that does some useful things, but I don't believe we're going to be needing to work with any of that. So let's just delete this line that says throw new system not implemented exception, because that won't actually let our mod do anything. Actually, we might need helper. Yeah, we should. I think right now we can say helper.events. I think it's player warped, yes. And so what I'm trying to do with this is I'm saying every time I warp, I want to create a mod that's going to play a little warp sound. And this doesn't mean like warping in-game, like you would warp from one location all the way across the map. It's just transitioning from like one map to another just by walking off to the next map. So like from the farm to the bus stop. And so we need to do helper.events.player, and then we're going to click the warp. And so this is going to be an event handler. So we need to say plus equals, and we're going to click tab. And so what that does is it auto-completed and created a function for us with some parameters that we shouldn't need to worry about too much. And it has that same line, throw new system not implement exception. And we'll click OK. You can rename it both right now to something better, but I think I'll just keep it to, we'll say play warp sound. Click apply. So we can just erase that. So we'll create something just really simple to help us figure this out. So we'll say like debug. Oh, sorry, I was thinking of Unity right now. because that's what I've been developing in. We'll say helper dot, no, it's not helper, it's monitor dot log, and then we can pass in a message, hello, the player has warped. Play the warp sound. Now, normally you would not want to do something like this, just because outputting a bunch of debug logs can really clog your console, can make things really difficult for people to understand later. But this is just an example, so when we show the mod, we can see that it is working. So there's a few more things we need to do before we can actually get this mod working. The first is we need to get a manifest.json file for this mod. So let me just Stardew Valley modding wiki manifest. There we go. So we can click on this. There's a nice documentation page. I really recommend reading up on a lot of this modding documentation on the wiki, just to help understand a lot of what I'm talking about. And so there's one for our SMAPI mod, and there's one for a content pack. This time we're going to take the one for the SMAPI mod. I'm just going to copy. I'm going to right-click Simple Sound Manager Example Project. I'm going to click Add. I'm going to do New Item. I wanted to... Sorry, that was probably an annoying sound. I think I'll do a text file, but I'm going to rename this manifest.json. And I believe that should work. And we're just going to copy paste everything we copied from the wiki here into the page, and it should be color coded something around this way. And notice it's the same stuff from earlier. You have name, author, version, description, unique ID. One thing that's different is entry DLL, which is just the output file, which for us will be Simple Sound Manager example.dll. So we'll rename this to Simple Sound Manager example.dll. Minimum API version will still be 2.10.0. Don't need to worry about that, and we do not need to worry about update keys. We'll name this to be Simple Warp Sound. For our name of the mod, the author will still be OmegaSys. The version is, we'll keep it 1.0.0. Our description will say a mod that plays a sound when you transition to another map. Our unique ID will be OmegaSys.warp sound. Now this will be completely different. It might be it'll be anything different, like your modding name dot whatever mod you're actually making. So this one's definitely different. Don't take this one exactly. Yes, that should work. Normally you would want the naming convention to be, the name of the mod matches the entry DLL. But this is just an example. I recommend keeping a consistent naming convention across everything. So we'll go back to our code real fast. So now we have a manifest.json, and we have our code. And so we're not completely finished yet, but how about we try building this and just testing out the mod as it is before we start playing any sounds. So we're going to click Simple Sound Manager Example. We're going to right-click and click. I clicked Rebuild, but really what you could do is you could have clicked Build. Just clicking Build or Rebuild, or you could even go up to the tab here in Visual Studios. And what it does is basically takes your code and crunches it together to a file. And then, thankfully, for how SMAPI works, is it should output it automatically to the mods folder. Yeah, the mod build package is copying the mod to files, program files, Steam, CMap, Common, Stardew Valley, mod, Simple Sound Manager Example, ... And then now what we can do is we can go to our mods folder, and we'll see that we have a folder here called Simple Sound Manager Example. If we open it up, we have our manifest.json, we have Simple Sound Manager Example.dll, and we have something called Simple Sound Manager Example.pdb. We're not going to worry about that too much right now. You can keep it if you want. I usually don't mess with it too much. So let's run SMAPI real fast and see what this does. So let's just open up our console real fast, and we'll see that it's loaded 3 mods now, and console commands, Simple Sound Manager, and then Simple Warp Sound. So thankfully it loaded in the first time. Wasn't sure if I did something wrong or not. So now we can go back to Stardew Valley, and let's just, for good's sake, create a new character. And we'll say this person's name is Harmony. Thank you, female. We'll randomize you real fast. You know what? That's fine. Our farm name is musical, and our favorite thing is sounds. We don't have any preference. We'll skip the intro. Sorry if this is a little loud. Let's click OK. Cool. Whoops. Looks like there is a... Oh, I think I know why. That is a piece of old code that I left in Simple Sound Manager. That was my fault. But don't worry about that. Just turn this music down a little bit so you can hear me. So if we just walk off the screen, transition map, we have Simple Warp Sound. Hello, the player is warp. Play the warp sound. So now, that just keeps happening. You can just ignore the Simple Sound Manager error message. I'll fix that, and that will not be up in the actual release. That was when I was testing everything before recording this video. So as we keep doing that, it keeps giving us that debug message every single time we warp. So now that we can do that, let's close that real fast. And give me one moment. Alright, now what we're going to do is we're actually going to play the sound using Simple Sound Manager via code. So what we want to do is you'll want to download Simple Sound Manager from like Nexus Mods or something and be able to reference it. Because I already have it on my computer, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a reference to it so that way I can use all the code included inside. So I'm going to go to References. I'm going to add reference. I'm going to click Browse. I'm going to go to my desktop. I'm going to go to Mods, and I'm going to click Simple Sound Manager, and I'm going to select the Simple Sound Manager.dll. And now I have a reference to it in my project. What this basically does is it basically says, hey, my mod that I just created, point to this other mod so that I can use its code. And we'll click OK. Now that we have that all sorted out, say using Simple Sound Manager. And now you realize that we can access it just like Stardew Modding API. So we'll include that. And now let's try accessing more of its code. So we can go Simple Sound Manager dot, and we'll go mod core, and we'll say dot music manager dot play sound. And what this does is it basically allows us to call Simple Sound Manager and its Simple Sound Manager and its Music Manager object to play a sound. Now it requires two parameters. Excuse me. It requires the name of the music pack that you're using and the sound name that you want to play. So if you remember, we named our music pack. We named our music pack Simple Sound Manager Content Pack Example, which is quite the mouthful, but it's alright. Actually, no, it's something different. My apologies. Let's go back to our mods. Simple Sound Manager Example. Right, let's look at this manifest.json. Oh yeah, our music pack is called Simple Warp Sound. My apologies, I had that wrong. So now what we can do is let's copy this name and we'll paste it in right here in quotes. Because since it's a string for the name. So now we have a music pack which is Simple Warp Sound, and then we're going to call, now we need to specify the sound name, which we called, if we go to our SSM content pack example, let's go music, we called it Warp Sound. So we're going to rename that. Or, well, I mean, I did rename just so I could copy paste. We're going to type Warp Sound. So now what we're doing is we don't want to have this actually in the entry method. My apologies. Let's clean this up a little bit. We want to actually have this when we warp. Give me 1 second to clear my throat. Alright. So now what happens is, what we're doing is we're saying, hey, Simple Sound Manager, access your music manager and play this sound every single time I warp. So now, and we're telling it, from the Simple Warp Sound content pack, play the warp sound file found inside that content pack. And so you're not allowed to have sound files in the same content pack with the same name. All the names have to be unique. But that shouldn't be too much of a problem. So you could have two separate content packs that have the same, like a same thing called warp sound, and that's totally allowed. So now that we have that, we're going to go to Simple Sound Manager example. We're going to click Build. It succeeded, so perfect. So now we can go to SM API, open that up, give it a moment to load. No, everything still works, thankfully. No glaring errors. We'll click load. We'll load our character, Harmony. And now we have our little character. Let's, go our options. Turn down this music a little bit, and now we should, walk. Oh. Oh, I see what I did wrong. No pack with specified key / name Simple Warp Sound, because it is using the Simple Sound Manager content pack example. Because what it's doing is it's looking for the content pack's manifest name. Give me 1 moment. My apologies. I'm just trying to get over a cold still. So, yeah, so that was my mistake. So, I had that wrong. It's not actually Simple Warp Sound. It is going to be... Yeah, it is going to be the name of whatever the content pack is called, not your actual SM API mod. So in this example, it is Simple Sound Manager content pack example, which is a terrible name. So let's name this SSM warp example. Yeah, so it just renamed the manifest of the content pack to be something a little more like sane. So then I'll take the name of this content pack in the manifest file, and I'll paste it here. So yeah, this needs, or the pack name should be the name of the, or the content pack loaded in, not the SMAPI mod that controls it. Cool, so now from the SSM warp example content pack, we will be playing the warp sounds. Let's do that again. Well, first let's click rebuild. Every time you change code, you should always click build, or you should click build. I click rebuild by unfortunate reflex. So make sure it succeeds, because if we don't build, our changes won't be updated. So then let's load up SMAPI one more time. How long have I been running this? It's been 36 minutes. Oof. That is pretty long. Now let's load it up one more time. Don't worry about this error message, that was my fault. See, every time now, when I walk out or change maps, it should play that. Yeah, every time I'm walking out, it says, hello, the player is warped. Play the warp sound. It's full screen, it's real fast, you know. Ooh, frame rate drop. So let's just walk around. And there we go. And that's a simple example of how to use Sound Manager. Whoops. I keep forgetting the music gets so loud. But yeah, that should be an example of how to use Simple Sound Manager. You know, there'll be future updates, or maybe if there's recommended features, I can see what I can do about adding it in. But yeah, thanks for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to leave comments or feedback. And I'll try my best to get back and try to do any bug fixes or feature requests that come up. Alright, thanks for watching.